Hello, welcome to Shelby Radio. I am Shelby Carino, and this is episode number 715. And we're going to talk about the spiritual burnout nobody talks about. And here we are at, I'm going to say, the first official week of October, okay? The great month to talk about everything as we're approaching Halloween, right? But I've been doing this mini series that I think is going to have about 10 episodes that's kind of relating to this entire theme that I've been speaking about over the last several weeks because it's real. It's what people are in right now. And these conversations need to happen. The awarenesses have to come to the forefront because we all have to maneuver through these changing times out here as we're moving towards the golden age and as we're in a huge turning point of this spiritual warfare that's going on planet. And regardless of your belief systems, it's happening, and somewhere all of us are being affected. So today, it may not be easy to hear some of the things that I'm going to talk about, but it's a conversation that needs to be talked about because the spiritual burnout usually sometimes is what is not being talked about. Okay? Because there's so many different garden varieties of how people think spirituality is supposed to look. Okay? They think, oh, you're spiritual, you're of the light, you should have this unending abundance and joy and just, things are just falling into your lap. And like I said last week, spirituality is a complete crumbling devastation of yourself, of your belief systems, your energy grid. I mean, all of it. It's just this crumbling of you. And when you're rebuilding that, which is really how it should have been when we were a baby, okay, where we don't have to crumble it to rebuild it. We should have already just sustained it, but that's another topic. You get burned out, okay? And it can even be like your light feels tired. Not just your human self, but that light within you is like, I just can't shine anymore. I have no flicker. You're just tired. And I get it. I know. I have been there one too many times, okay? So I want to start off by saying that when you're in this spiritual burnout phase, because it's a phase, and phases move, all right? When you're in this spiritual burnout phase that nobody really talks about, this isn't about your average, hey, why don't you take a break and meditate kind of burnout. That's probably going to be nails on a chalkboard if somebody were to say that to you, if you're truly in the spiritual burnout that I'm speaking of. All right. This is the kind of burnout that literally creeps into your bones. You don't even know how it got there. Okay. But it's there. And it's just like creep, 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 creep. And before you know it, you're like, oh my God, it's all in my bones. This is the kind that makes you question your path, your purpose, even your light. Okay? This is the burnout that usually comes and hits after years of doing so many integrations in your deep soul work. And I can tell you that after teaching hundreds of thousands of people in the energies, leading all of these other people clearing energy, healing generational lines. I even got to a place in my life where one day I woke up and I said to myself, you know what? I'm really tired. And I'm so tired in a way that sleep is not going to fix this. And that's when I was like, huh, okay, this is spiritual burnout. I've literally been burning the candle at both ends. And spiritually, I am just at kaput. And that's when I learned, oh my, this stuff is so real. Okay. It kind of reminds me when I go to Pilates, and the Pilates instructors will remind us that, hey, you're just at the beginning of your practice. Just when you think it's getting easier, you're at the beginning of your practice, because then you learn something else and you go deeper into your practice and you do a whole other level of Pilates. Well, that's how it is in spirituality, okay? Because you are you doing you. So you get to this level of mastery at a certain level, hence level of mastery. And you're like, oh my gosh, I've arrived. Oh, this is it. This is the golden nugget right here. And then you have that little respite, right? You know, whatever. And then you're like, oh God, okay, now something else is coming, you know? And then you go through that phase and then you're like, oh, I mastered that. And then you go through another phase and you're like, oh, I mastered that. Okay. But eventually you get to a place where you like look back to see everything you've done and you're like, oh dear God, how have I survived this? How am I not like dead on the floor? And then when you have that awareness, you become dead on the floor. Not literally necessarily, but spiritually, you're like, I need a break a minute. I just need a break. I need to run away. I need a break. Okay. So I can tell you in my life, I'm there. I am at spiritual burnout because between my spiritual awakening back in 2011, and I laugh for simple reasons, but you know, between my spiritual awakening in 2011, meeting my mentor, taking her courses, learning everything she had to teach me, meeting Joe, igniting that twin energy, seeing the masculine part of myself, you know, getting married to him, raising two boys, going through spiritual warfare on both sides of the family, going through the death of my dad, going through this stuff that I've told you about in prior episodes about his mom that I haven't even talked about again yet, and where all that is, and, you know, just all of the things, okay? I haven't really had a break in my spirit. Joe hasn't had a break in his spirit. We have just been non-stop. And a couple of weeks ago, we had a conversation, and I said to him, hey, when we get to a place where all of this stuff dies off, all of this stuff calms down, we have to get out of town. Like, not our normal, hey, we're going to go over here and go camp or whatever. Like, we need to get off grid, whatever that looks like. We just need to unplug, recharge, do whatever we have to do, where we know even when we go out of town, we're not working the energy. We're like literally on vacation. So we know this time is coming because it's going to be such an important spiritual rejuvenation for ourselves, because we're aware that something else is going to show up pretty immediate after that. And we're going to have the stamina and the spiritual oomph to build the mission, you know, in a whole other way, whatever that even is. Okay. So, but my psychic is like starting to feel these things, right? It's starting to pick these things up because I know where Joe's at in his world. And I know where I'm going to have to support him somewhere in that world. So I'm at, okay, we're going to have to really like take a vacation, like legit. We're going to have to take some time off. So let me go into like, what is spiritual burnout for one? Okay. Cause you don't even really hear people talk about this, or at least I don't. Probably because I'm in the process of burning out. Okay. But spiritual burnout has nothing to do with being lazy. It has nothing to do with that. And it's not even about that you don't want to shine. It's the opposite. You do want to shine. You do want to have a lot of energy, okay? However, it's that part of your soul that has been running marathons. And I mean marathons in a lot of these realms that you can't even see that you're running the marathon in. And your human form is asking itself, can we rest now? Like, are we done? And just the other day, Joe said to me, we were both getting dressed and he's in the shower and I'm doing my makeup or something. And he was like, babe, I had this dream where it was with my mother's phone. And I can't even remember how he said it. It had something to do with her phone. And he was trying to call her or something, but something with her phone. I don't know. Somehow it connected in and she wasn't on the line with him, but he could hear her conversations with all of these people she was having conversations with. And he was just like listening. It was like this weird dynamic, he said. And so he was able to hear how she spoke to all of her siblings. And he says to me that it was so bizarre that he had this dream, which really was reality. Okay, let's just be honest about that. And that, he was like, yeah. And I actually got angry, in the dream because of how she's talking to these people. And now I know why she's always been the way she's been with me and why these people have treated me this way or this and that. And I was just like, wow, that's pretty intense. And then he says to me, he goes, I am so tired. He's like, I am so tired. He said, I just feel like everything is just nonstop. Like it's just nonstop. I just haven't gotten any sleep. And I'm laughing because I'm sitting over here going, okay, my fucking ass is getting up at, 5:15 every day. I have to be at the school by 6:55, 7 o'clock. Kids come in at 7:25. I am bombarded by kids from basically 7:25 until 4:15. And I have no breather. I don't get to leave the building. I don't get to talk to adults. I don't like and not that I'm comparing, but I kind of am. I'm like, okay, so you may have to get up when I'm getting up an hour later because, the dogs are up, but you're getting to sit on the couch and drink your coffee and watch Fox News and, have some peace and quiet in the house and then get dressed and then maybe go to work for a few hours. Like, but it was just so funny because I got what he was saying that I'm like, physically, you're not even doing, what I'm doing, dealing with what my nervous system is going through at this level with kids, because he would like literally lose his shit. But to him, he's exhausted, and that's valid. And so that's when I was at, oh, yeah. His spirit is tired. So even if physically he may not be exerting himself maybe the way he could be exerting himself or he used to exert himself or whatever, that's when I was like, oh, I got to talk about spiritual burnout because that's where he's at. And that's what's created the conversations of like, we're going to have to figure out a trip. Like we're going to have to go somewhere and whatever. And so it's not just me being burned out, it's him being burned out. It's us being burned out. And usually, when he gets to that point, obviously I'm doing a podcast episode about it. And that's kind of how I filter through the energies. So, I know he wants to rest, and I know I want to rest. And so that's kind of like how you're on burnout mode. So you may feel emotionally numb. And it's funny because Joe even actually made that comment, like he just doesn't feel anything. And I said to him, well, my God, I said, that's like totally normal because, look at everything that you've had to sort through and, chisel through. Like, yeah, the energy is just done. Like, it's just numb. There's nothing there. And he's like, yeah, but you always say like, I should feel some joy or happiness. And I'm like, well, not if you're at this stage of it, like you're just neutral, you're numb, you're neutral. Like I talked about that in one of my episodes. So, it's natural. It's just the way it is. But you also may feel resentful because if you're in the matrix and you're going and blowing every day in the matrix and you don't really feel like you're in your mission, or maybe you're in your mission, okay, you may be getting resentful of the mission, even if you're not even in the mission, because you can't get to the mission because you're on spiritual burnout. So even if that mission matters, you're just like, screw this. Like, this is too hard. Like, you don't even care anymore, right? And another feeling you may have is you're tired of people needing your energy. And I can say for myself, I have said this to my kids, my students, they're so needy, okay? Like, unreal needy. And it's just like, the kids are different these days, okay? Like back in the day when I taught school or even when I went to school, you couldn't even imagine getting up out of your seat unless you raised your hand. Like it was a rule. It didn't happen. That's how it was. Kids today, it doesn't matter how many times you tell them, like they cannot get up out of their seat. They can't leave the room. They can't do that. They don't care. They have no filter to understand boundaries, to understand obedience. It's the most bizarre thing. And so even with me every day with the students, it's like you turn around, someone's in your face. I need this. Can you know, and it's not just kids being kids. Okay. It's a whole other level. So that is a part of that spiritual burnout, is when you're just tired of people just needing everything from you in your energy. Okay. Wherever it's coming from. And then you may also feel disconnected from the very gifts that once lit you up, that made you excited to get up in the morning, excited to have conversations with people or, whatever. Okay. And none of this is depression, even though it really feels like depression. And it's not even failure. Okay. It's an energetic fatigue from spiritually overfunctioning yourself. Let me just say it that way. Okay. It's literally energetic fatigue because there's way too much going on in your spiritual makeup. And I know I'm there. I know Joe is there. And I've, had to say to him, we just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other, because at a certain point in time, everything will make sense. Everything, in that phase of doing will all come together. Okay. So let me talk about now, we have some silent culprits in this burnout that I speak of. I had someone ask me actually the other day, where does this come from? Like when you're burned out like this, like where is it coming from? And this is some things that I actually shared with this individual. As I said, I told them, I said, well, first of all, look at where you're living. Are you living in a very high stress environment? Are you living in a very low vibrational environment? Because if you're working a job, if you have a family, if you're in a system of a relationship even that resists having the light shine, well, it's going to drain any reserve that you have in you. Okay? So you got to look at that. And then I also mentioned about them focusing on whether or not they're being the emotional trash can for people. Okay? If you're the go-to person for everyone's pain and they just come and bleh, like dump it on you, and they're not doing it in a way that's going to power you up to use the information, they're a true negative Nelly that just comes and dumps and leaves. They're not actually dumping it in a way that's actually going to fuel you for something else. Okay? That's being an emotional trash can. So if you're that person for everyone else's pain, drama, whatever, and you don't really receive any kind of support back, then your field becomes overloaded. And when your field is overloaded and you're not getting that support back, you're going to blow. And you're going to have to release all that. And that's going to be you putting your energetic footprint down and saying, well, I'm no longer going to be the emotional trash can. Screw that. Okay? And that's a part of how an empath builds immunity. All right? Burnout also comes from the unrealistic spiritual expectations. Sometimes we have these spiritual expectations that, we're not supposed to struggle. And that's completely false. Okay. We're human. We struggle. Or, we're not allowed to fall apart. Okay. Well, that's false. We're going to fall apart. All right. So all of this is human. So don't have unrealistic expectations on yourself. Okay. Allow it to be what it needs to be. And then also there's an energetic overgiving that can happen, and there's no replenishment of that energy. So if you're one of those people and you give and you give and you give and you give, and you're giving so much of your light, you're giving so much of your personal space, and you're just always giving, okay? Well, you might be clearing other people. You might be supporting other people. You might be leading other people, and you're never receiving that equal energy back. Well, then the burnout is inevitable. It's going to happen. So I know I have been going through that, just being back in the workforce again. And I'm just like, oh my God, there's so much going on, but in my immediate circle, I'm not working in my immediate circle with people that are of the light in the way I am, that can feed that back and forth to me. Okay. And that's something that I've struggled with, because I have to hold in a whole different way, because in that immediate group, it's hard. Okay. There's no people in there that are conscious to it, that are exchanging it back and forth. Because when you're with someone that's in that light and they're conscious, you can feel the exchange going back and forth. You're feeding this person, they're feeding you. You're feeding them, they're feeding you. There is this even exchange. But when you get around people and it's not like that, and they're not open, then it's a completely different type of feeling. Okay? So, yeah, there's that. So here's the red flags, okay? How do you know you're in spiritual burnout? Well, you might not be even warned about this at first, but now I'm going to warn you, okay? You might become avoidant of your own spiritual tools. So let's say that you used to get up every morning and do your oracle cards, or you used to go out in the yard and hug a tree, or you used to take a meditative walk listening to a podcast episode of somebody's, maybe mine, I don't know. And all of a sudden, you're just not doing it. You're just completely avoiding any of that. That is your spirit saying, I can't, I just can't. I can't. There's nothing there. Okay? And if you sometimes, I got to this place once in my life. If you hear the sound of one more healing session that you need to do and you literally want to scream, you're at spiritual burnout. Because you're like, if I hear one more healing session, if I have to listen to this, that I need to do this, or I have to listen to that, or I'm going to freaking scream. Because you're just like, I'm at my limit. I don't have anything else in there. Like, I'm on burnout. Another sign that you may be on burnout is you fantasize about running away from your job, okay? Or your calling, or the platform that you're so passionate about or used to be passionate about. You just want to scream, throw it all away, and run. And it's so funny because Joe got there the other day. We were in the kitchen and I had gotten home from work or something, and he was just like, you know what? He goes, I just want to forget about everything, and I just want to go live in the woods. And I was like, yeah, I gotcha. I understand. You don't even care. You don't care if a bill gets paid. You just don't care. You are just, I'm going to run away. Screw all this. Okay. Yeah. Joe is there. You also get triggered by people that are still in their awakening phase because they're in a high awakening phase. So if they're waking up, they may be in that phase where it's the honeymoon period. Everything's grand. Everything's great. Oh my gosh, look at all these synchronicities. I'm looking at, I see 1111 all the time. I see 222. Oh my gosh, the license plates. Oh, did you see that symbolism? Oh my gosh. Oh wow, I was thinking about this and it showed up in my world. And oh. And if you're on spiritual burnout right now, I probably just exhausted you. And you probably were shouting, telling me to shut the F up. Okay? But that is the awakening high phase. We've all been there. Guilty, talking about myself. Okay? But you may be triggered by that if you've been doing this a while and you're just like, I can't, I won't. This is too much. Okay? You also may feel like you've outgrown the system and you just don't have any place to go. God knows I was there and I stayed out of the system for 17 years. Okay. So when I woke up and I went through all of that, I was just I've outgrown the system. I can't do this anymore. And then lo and behold, 17 years later, I'm let me see if I can go back into the system and see how it is now. Okay. And now, hence all of these series of podcast episodes from what I've learned. However, I am going to say that the biggest sign that you're probably on spiritual burnout is that you're probably grieving the version of yourself who could actually carry some more light. And what I mean by that is you know how much light you can sustain and carry. But when you're on burnout, you don't have anything in you to carry any more light. So you're grieving that side of yourself because you're just tired, right? You're spiritually tired and you're looking for the opportunity to reinvest in your own light, okay? Which usually means a trip or a hiatus of something, okay? So let me tell you something, because this is what you need to hear. If you're going through any of this, you're not broken, okay? You're not even failing. And you're not less spiritual because you're exhausted. You're becoming a new version of you. And this is the process. This is how this works. So even if burnout may not necessarily be easy, okay, it's also not always a signal to push through. Okay? Sometimes it's just a signal to shed everything. Stop pushing. Just allow things to let go, to shed the roles that are no longer for you now, to shed responsibilities that you may have picked up when others weren't picking up the responsibility on their own. Maybe it's time to shed a system that no longer serves the frequency that you are, that you have become. So none of this is about quitting. It's about releasing so you can rebirth. And I even said to Joe, I know you're going through your awakening process because of everything he's had to go through with his mother. And I've watched him wake up in a whole other way. And because of that, I've woken up in a whole other way. And I said to him, you are going to rebirth, and so am I. And when you get there, wherever there is with your rebirth, I told him, you are not going to like the fact that I am in the matrix working. You are not going to like the fact that I'm at a job 10 to 12 hours a day, 4 days a week, because you're not going to have access to my energy, my light that will fuel your next mission. I told him that. And I said, and because of that, then we have to figure things out, how all of that is going to work. Okay? Because the wife supports the husband in those energies. And so I know his mission is coming. I have a mission coming. Okay? I'm learning a lot of stuff. I'm doing a lot of things, and I don't know where or what I'm going to be doing. To be honest, I have no idea. Every time I think I know, I don't know. And so I'm just like, well, I'm here for now, and this is where I need to be. And so that is a part of me releasing so I can rebirth. I'm just doing it through what I do every day. Okay? And maybe that's what you're doing too. So let me offer some steps that I have learned that helped me, that I know has helped certain clients that I've actually given this information to, of what to do right now if you're on spiritual burnout. First of all, you have to give yourself permission, and I mean full permission, to stop doing your light. Let your light just be. Okay? Without producing anything. You don't have to go and create. You don't have to produce. You don't have to do any of that. And I had to give myself that permission when I went back into the school system, because that part of me and my light wanted to go and create this and do this and create that and and literally I had to tell Joe, I was like, I have to make myself to not do light. I need to just be, and I need to just be with what I'm in. And that is what I need to be doing. And because I shifted that, it's been so much easier for me, because it has released expectations from myself that I have to improve something or make it better or put more light on it or whatever. It's just allowed me to relax. Okay. A second thing is silence. What to do now, just pull back from the noise if you can, okay? And it's not necessarily just physical noise, it's spiritual noise. So maybe you take a break from listening to podcasts, except mine. No, just kidding. Okay. Or you step away from the teachers for a minute. You step away from having readings, or, you just get back to you. You get back to you and you get back to your voice. So you're not bombarding yourself with all the spiritual stuff that you feel like you have to do. Okay. A third thing is to release any identity attachments. And what I mean by that is, yes, you're probably a healer. Yes, you're probably a teacher of some sort. Yes, you're probably an energy worker somewhere in your world. Okay. You're a soul. Okay. Let the rest of anything else fall away for right now. Just release those identities. Whatever it may be, just release them. Okay? Release any attachments to any identity. And then create little mini rituals where you can reconnect. Okay? Maybe you have to burn a candle. I mean, look, like I'm literally burning a candle. Okay? I've been burning a candle for several weeks when I'm doing my podcast episodes, because it's the part of me that's reconnecting to like the fire energy, or, whatever you want to call it. And it's just soothing to know that I can look over there and I can see a candle the last several weeks. Okay. Speak one of your truths. All right. Touch a tree. It doesn't have to be big. None of this has to be big and gargantuous and, oh, I've done this. All right. It's just enough to whisper to your soul and say, hey, I haven't forgotten about you. I know you're there. Like, that's it. It's just a micro, teeny tiny thing just to reconnect. Okay? That's it. Like the other day, I was going to Pilates, and I told Joe, I said, I'm going to stop at Torchy's Tacos after Pilates because it's a comfort place for me to get queso and an avocado taco. Okay? That's a little ritual of mine. It's just a place where I can sit after doing Pilates and just really getting into my mind, body, soul connection. And then, yes, I go eat junk, but it doesn't matter. It's the place. I don't know what it is about that place. That's one of my places that I've just anchored things there that I reconnect with. And then I get to kind of sort through things. Okay? That's what I'm talking about. And then another thing that I do is just let peace be the proof of where you're at. So when your life gets quiet, when your life gets simple, when your life gets a little bit more peaceful, it's not that you're losing any kind of magic. It's actually that you're integrating the magic you've already been working. So sometimes you have to slow down. Sometimes those things have to kind of go away for a minute, okay? Because you're integrating. So if you're burned out from being the light, you're not alone, okay? Raising my hand over here. The spiritual path is real, all right? It's real, and sometimes it just wrecks your world. And it has to, because it has to rebuild you. So you never need to hustle for value or worth, or I have to keep doing this to do that, to do this, to do that. And you don't even have to glow through your exhaustion. Like, I'm exhausted, but I'm going to glow. Okay, I need to make sure I'm shining. No, just be freaking exhausted. And you definitely just have to come home to yourself. That is the one thing you have to do. You just need to come home to yourself. So just rest. Okay? Rest your soul, because your next version of yourself in your own light is being born, and it's being born in the quiet. Okay? When you're in that burnout process. All right? Whew. All right. I just bowed that forward. Okay. That's all I got for this one. This was, wow, only 40 minutes long. You're welcome. The last 2 weeks have been very long. So you get a little bit of a break today on this episode, but I'm going to be back next week with the next topic of conversation. So until then, Same time, same place next week, and have a good week. I'll talk to you then. Take care.